Hey there, Middle-earth Strategy Battle Gamers. Today, we're going to be doing a tactics talk, and we're not going to be going over armies and kind of stuff like that. This time, we're going to actually be talking about list building, what we think works. So, we've now been to a couple tournaments, and I've been playing for a little over a decade now, or about a decade, and so has he. And, there's a lot of things that have changed about the game, and there are a lot of things that have kind of stayed the same. List building is one of the things that, to me, has stayed the same. So let's go and start talking. What do you think? What do you like when you build lists? I guess it'll ultimately depend on what point value. So we'll say 600, 700, 800 points. That's three kind of 300 point area.
Yes, well, 600, 800, and even 700, all those are kind of like the meta. So you find a lot of people playing those points.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start off with 600 points.
600 points.
600 points. We used to play that a lot, and that's actually what the Colorado group used to do. They used to do a 600 point build. And it's normally about 33 model. Well, for me, it was 33 models. I used to always try to cram Aragorn in, but if you probably have the best ideas, probably 36, 37 models if you play cheaper heroes with Gondor. And even with elves, probably, I think.
You can probably get
our friend, he was able to get 3 full warbands in with elves, so.
Yeah. So here's normally when I have a 600 point list. Here's normally what I wanted. I wanted decent bow limit. So I wanted. This is before Rohan had the 100% rule. So I normally wanted about eight bow shots. 8 bow shots. I wanted 6 to 9 might. I normally would take Theoden, Eomer, Erkenbrand, and then I start taking Eowyn, Erkenbrand, Theoden. So about 9 might. And I wanted about 3.5 warbands. So about 30 models plus 3 heroes, 33 models. So yeah, about the same as you. So we actually didn't play 700 points up until recently when we started training for Nova. We did 800 points for our tournament because we liked that point limit. It was a big point limit. Yeah. But we did see we saw the kind of how big it was. It allowed people to take
a lot of casters. It allowed people to take good heroes with kind of I would say really good martial heroes.
Yeah. So what we kind of figured is, I like 800 points, but I'm glad that Nova this year is 700. I think that it'll be good.
Mm-hmm.
700 points. Okay, well 800 points. I was able to get 3 warbands, or 4 depending on the extra hero I would take. So about 3 warbands with a really good hero, like attachments. I had Thranduil, I had Legolas, I had Tauriel with 3 full warbands, and then I had Galadriel, Lady of Light. And that's about every list I had was about like that. Same thing with you. He had.
Yeah, I had Galadriel, Kelborn, 10 archers, and a big pike line. So 24 guys, pike guys.
So now 700 points is the kind of point limit we've been training at, and I've been able to get 2 warbands, a partial warband, and maybe like an extra hero in there. I've built a Rohan and an Elf list, and I think both lists were about 30 models. Same thing about you.
Yeah. But see, I'm taking a very expensive hero.
So Aragorn.
If people hoard a certain army, then you can take a lot of models. So if you're like new to the game, you kind of want to have a. I would say if you wanted to have a kind of a.
Do you want to have a forgiving army?
A forgiving army, then you'd want to build a bigger bigger model count.
So yeah, here's how I built Isengard when I first started playing him, and this actually worked really well. You take a couple captains and a shaman, no named heroes. Even though the named heroes for Isengard are pretty good, 3 might, the other ones are a little bit higher defense, and they're cheaper. So I took captains with shamans, 3 full warbands right there, and then I would take Vrasku, and then that would allow me to have a 4th warband with crossbows. So normally, when you start taking cheaper captains or cheaper heroes, like Gondor, for instance, has a plethora, even Rohan has a bunch of them. The Rohan infantry is expensive, or their troops are. So, normally when you do that, you have about 3 warbands plus some. So like more elite troops too you throw in, it matters. So when I'm building the list currently, now that I've been playing for so long, I want 10 might at least, especially for Rohan where they have to have might. I want great bowfire, just to counter, because I know opponents, a lot of people are going to be playing elves, a lot of people play elves, so I want to be able to have a way to counter that.
Yeah. Well, at the tournaments, since we're on list building and stuff, you see a lot of Isengard, a lot of dwarves, Harad, Nazgul armies, like 3 ring wraiths, 4 ring wraiths, elves. There's like a lot of armies you see on the table.
Yeah. So you gotta have ways to counter it in your army. So my army now I have, and then actually this started about a year ago. I started taking a caster in my army, like a Gandalf. Gandalf and Saruman are 2 casters that I started taking.
Yeah.
So my current list: Saruman, Saruman, Aemir, Eric Brand, and then I have Awen for good kind of extra might. So, if you're building a list, having a caster doesn't hurt. It actually helps you, especially when you're playing against someone who has like a Balrog or a Cave Troll or someone that's a little harder to contain. Now that hurls and all that are out.
Yeah.
Or been out.
Yeah, casters are good for part of your list building, and they're easy to fit in at like a 800, 700 point limit. Mm-hmm. Generally, at 600 points, you have to, if you're going to take a wizard, you have to take them unless you're playing Isengard, you have to take them as a separate warband.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to fit them in with a substantial amount of models.
Yep.
So 700, 800 points, that's fairly easy to do, but 600 points, 600 was kind of small, so you really can't do any of that unless you have a caster built into your army.
Yeah, so that's why I like 700 points, because now we got 100 extra points from what we were doing and 100 less points from what we were doing. So it's like in between. I think it's good because 800 points was great. I actually enjoyed it, but I think it's still too much for some of the kind of cheese factor. And I think 600 points is too slim. And then people, again, can take a Ring Wraith or someone and they can really steal the show. So I think, honestly, I haven't played that many armies in the game, like in terms of scope. But I've played, 3 or 4. In each army, you tend to get about 3 warbands, 700 points, thereabouts.
Yeah, and like with dwarves, you have cheap heroes, so you can take good heroes. So when you're building your list, you want to have, I would say, I like to take average heroes, and then I like to have Aragorn for Gondor. Or when I'm playing my elves, I like to have a couple heroes. I like to take Rumel. I like to take Haladir. I like to take Kelborn. Mm-hmm. Since we're playing 700 points, I did have to cut him out. I like to have Galadriel because she works really well with my elves in terms of magic. I don't really need her with my Gondor because I have a higher defense, so shooting is a little bit better. Just things like that. You have to look at your army and see what you need.
What about your Rivendell?
Rivendell. I like to actually take Gandalf. Except I would have to cut him. I'd have to cut something out for 700 point drop, but Gandalf worked really well with my Rivendell because he had a blinding light, so you have a lower model count. You don't want them getting picked off with shots. So I took him for his blinding light, his sorcerer's blast to help set up charges.
So I was going to talk about the synergy of that army because that's another thing. When you're building lists, you look at synergies that work well together.
Well, 800. That was an 800 point list. Mm-hmm. Gandalf, Elrond, and Lindir. And then I think like 17 riders for 800 points.
Yeah.
So what I did is I kept them kind of all within like a 6-inch bubble. And Lindir gives everyone a magic resistance and a 6-up. And Gandalf gives everyone blinding light on 6 inches. So I versed the Ringwraith army, and he couldn't get any magic off because I had magic resistance.
It was really hard.
It was really, really good. So that was a really good method. And it's stuff like that we have to look out for. Like, most armies have at least some form of a magic resistance hero or something that would be good to take.
So if you're playing like an army like fiefdoms, you can take a really good hero like Emerhill who really buffs, and then when you take Emerhill, you gotta look at what troops you take. So you're like, okay, so I take Emerhill. I'm gonna take Dol Amroth now. with a bigger portion of Dalaran just because he buffs them that much. So having heroes that buff your models, having heroes that can upgrade your models, like Brand, for instance, can upgrade riders to fight force, so it's almost like a must now. If you don't take him, then you're missing out on something.
Yeah.
So yeah, having great synergy heroes, great guys that can upgrade troops, great guys that can buff troops in game, stuff like that. Stuff I like personally, and honestly, in the time I've played, I normally don't take a hero that's over 160. I do take Gandalf, but I don't necessarily like taking him because he's that expensive. But I know I have to sometimes, and I do enjoy his the way he plays mechanically. But it's just I don't like taking someone that's over really 200 points. I can live with Gandalf because I can still get a good model count in. But yeah, to me, I just don't like over 200 point models because they normally don't make up their points, and the model like Gandalf normally doesn't either, just because you play him with the defensive bubble and you try and shoot out a sorcerer blast here and there, and sometimes you'll cast it. I mean, you cast on a high dice roll, so sometimes you won't. So it really depends on kind of the game type you're playing, all that. So, also.
Okay, so let's just recap what we're talking about. So when you're building your list, when you're sitting down, you want to look at your point limit.
Yep.
So if you're playing a 600 point or lower, like a 500, 300, then you want to try to get as many models as you can. Try to get some good synergy.
Mm-hmm.
When you go into 700, 800, look at heroes, models, like a synergy, magic, might. Those are 5 good things to look at. Even will and will.
Model count.
Yeah.
Bow limit.
Oh yeah, bow limit's
Might.
one.
Will and.
And those are things I always look at when I'm building my list and
Synergy.
see if I have enough of everything, and then you also want to play test everything, of course.
Yeah.
But
I mean, if you don't go to tournaments and you don't play in tournaments, which ultimately the game was kind of turned into a big tournament league. A lot of people, I think, about everyone who played, well, not everyone, but a lot of people who play in the community go to tournaments and compete in tournaments. So,
and it's just a good way to get games.
I like going to tournaments.
It's a good way to get games, and with I've never had anybody who was really they were really laid back.
Yeah. I've never had a nasty opponent,
so that's it's a good way to get in games.
Yep.
And it's a great community. But those are, I think, the main highlights of the list building I would like to do.
So remember, might, synergy, model count, bow limit, and will, because you want to have a good amount of will for when you're versing. So those 5 things are things that work well when you're doing list building.
Yeah, here's another example of synergy. Gandalf has a strength and will.
Yep.
So I have one other caster in my army, Elrond, who doesn't have as much will as Gandalf does.
Mm-hmm.
So strength and will on.
You just keep
casting. And then not only do I get a bonus will from Lindir, but I also get I could get potentially a will back with Gandalf.
So you potentially get 2 recurring wills in a turn, which is something that he has done, and it works well because Elrond's Nature's Wrath is a really good ability for him.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, guys, I think that's about all I got. I mean, I know it's a really short video probably for list building, but honestly, when I build lists, I don't look at much other than synergy, bow limit, and I just play test it and kind of crash course it.
Yeah, crash course. That's a big thing. I actually go through drafts, so I have an initial list. I see weaknesses I need to work on, like with Gondor. I think, and with some of our battle reports, you can see. Okay, I'm cutting this out. I'm taking this now. I'm cutting this out. I'm taking this now, and generally I like that. Just that list.
So yeah,
the final
being
draft.
patient, playing a lot of different games, testing your army. So, guys, that's all I got to say. I think that's all he has to say. So we're gonna be checking out now. So please like, share, subscribe, comment, and happy wargaming.